the nameless name. What's up, my dude?
Yeah, yeah. Nothing much, man. Just cooling, man. Just following the breath, man.
Cool. Following the breath. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, just doing things that don't have me breathing all heavy and sighing and yawning, and things that I can stay present for, that are in alignment with the breath. So I'm not going against it. And, I at this point, I can feel if I'm dedicating, the breaths in my day towards actions that are you're just not in alignment with, the support of the breath. So, I pretty much my whole life is kind of geared off of that, like, starting my day with it. So then I kind of like set the table, and I can see like how to navigate. Like if I'm getting away, if at this point, I know when I'm making errors and stuff that I'm not breathing, and like when my presence just isn't there, I just have signals that I know, like, okay, I'm not in alignment with the breath, and I just need to evaluate. I just need to be observant of what's happening, so that I can get back in alignment.
And so when you find that you've fallen out of alignment and you're not breathing consciously, do you just bring your attention back to your breathing, or what does that look like?
Yeah, usually the first thing I do is like just fully exhale. Once I realize that I forgot to breathe, or my body hasn't been breathing, and or has been breathing shallow, then I usually just fully exhale so that I can clear, and then take a quality breath, and then start trying to get the body back in a better rhythm until I forget again. And the more the more breath work you're doing in a day, more sessions, it's just like the average breath is just better, Yeah, the most unconscious breath is still going to be just better because the body's just kind of in that rhythm already.
I'm taking a moment to take a good breath here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where are you in the world right now?
I'm on the Northeast right now, man. That's wild. My brother about to have a baby, so I'll just
cool.
Yeah, it's wild, man. So I'm about to watch that miracle, that all the miracles happening to make so that goes through, and then I'm gonna go from there. See, honestly, that's kind of where I'm basing my point of reference off of how I'm gonna navigate once I, see this process go, complete itself, kind of in a sense, or start in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think when she's born, or re-arrives, I think she'll a lot of stuff will be clear, and then I'll know exactly how to navigate. That's what I mean, I guess, about following the breath. Like I know, there's a lot of projections, a lot of options, paths to take, but ultimately I know it's one path, and it's kind of a process of elimination. It just feels like it's a bunch of them, but it's always really, it's always really no options, kind of, and it's just one path. And the earlier you realize it, the more you can kind of like make the most of what's coming down it. So I feel like, yeah, certain things you got to do what you can't not do. So I feel like it was something I couldn't not do. I had to stick around for this, and even though it's tight for my ideals, the way everything's playing out, I'm just seeing how it's divinely aligned or whatever. I'm just seeing how everything's placed. The more I observe this whole process and why I ended up being here at this point.
And do you have any role in the birthing process?
I think this is, I just have to be in my brother's ear the most, about this whole situation, because it's, she wants to have a hospital birth, but and I think you can only have one person in there because of the baloney 19 shit. So it's not even nothing. I don't think I think only the father can come in. So
wow.
I just got to do what I can to be on him so that he stays on top of people.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel some like constriction. My somatic experiences, I contract a little bit thinking about a hospital birth. I know I had one, and I've been really curious lately about doulas and kind of the
Yeah.
midwifing process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of I guess personal stuff that goes into what what I'm seeing in the situation, but I guess it makes sense for me to just say it. But so like I feel like everything names itself, right? Like even you don't name a dog something that just you aren't compelled to name it. The name is being compelled and insisted upon you by like the will of the dog. It's like a joint naming situation, kind of in a lot of ways. So I feel
Hmm.
like my brother decided to name his daughter Natural, Lee, and her middle name is Lee. So her name's gonna be
Hmm.
Natural. Her name is Natural Lee, right? And I think this whole time they've been trying to control the way that this baby's gonna be born, and they're kind of getting lulled to sleep because they keep like getting their dates pushed back and moved around and everything.
Hmm.
And so I feel like the baby is organizing the whole thing. I think the baby is the most conscious one here, and that
Hmm.
the baby or brought them two together, and pretty much she's gonna catch the mom slipping where she has to have the baby naturally. That's what I feel like. I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing, just from my observation. Like they keep moving the goalposts. Everybody's kind of like not as paying as much attention as they were like a couple weeks ago, and I just feel like, oh man, I think they might get lulled to sleep, and then this baby will come naturally the way she's named, and I think that's just that's how I feel about the situation. So that could be wrong, but that's just what I feel. I feel like a lot of things is about to happen, and it's a bunch of miracles and everything happening on a bunch of levels. But in my personal life, I guess that's like my representation of the universal disclosure that's happening.
Yeah, I remember last time we talked, you were telling me about universal disclosure and Martin Kenny. I watched his video. And that date, what is the date? December 21st?
Yes, the beginning of the alignment.
Man, that's coming up quick, huh?
Yeah, you can feel it, man.
There's some, I can feel a lot of stuff, man. There's some,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can put words to it all, but there's some motion in the ocean for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like based on the way things is going, the entropy or I mean not the entropy, the thermodynamics of things, hot becoming cold, cold becoming hot, and everything, and how things like kind of back and forth, with the power, and depending on your alignment, I guess you could just stay aligned with the power as long as you stay flexible enough to move with it, but. Everybody kind of gets there. It's a dualism. We're living in this dualism, and it's the polarity is getting so extreme at this point. So you got everything's so split down the middle, and so the dualism is expressing itself on all levels. Like nobody's getting over on the next person. Like it's like they think that the left's gonna win, the right's gonna win, but really it's gonna come down to like whoever yields just the right way enough, like on some tower shit. If they yield enough just the right way, then they'll just merge, and then your enemy just becomes you or whatever at that point. But it's gonna be a crazy process of that, and I think everything that's possible that could happen is really about to happen. It's kind of like a revelations period in a lot of ways, and you got. The guy, it's just looking at Trump, man. This guy really, again, with the name, he's embodying that hologram. He's embodying that name of being a Trump card. I feel like he really is that guy. And I feel like the left is just being wound up right now, being told that they won. And then, that they're going to, hit everybody with that news. And now there's this period where they're going to say, they had to say that they had to give you this projected president. They kept saying it projected. They kept, they gave you that real quick. They called that real early, even though they're still counting votes. Like they gave you
It
that
says
so
projected on Instagram. It says projected president.
yeah. So they hit you with that real quick. Declared that early just to like make that soak into people's minds, and then they're gonna hit everybody with the lockdowns in the leftist areas. I don't think the right wing area is gonna shut down too much, but the leftist area and then the left cities, anywhere that's a leftist city, you might be in Georgia, but if you're in Atlanta, it's probably, you know, who knows how they're going to handle it because it's a leftist city. So like, I feel like all the leftist areas are going to like go into the lockdown more. And then this shit is all going to go to Supreme Court. And I feel like Trump is going to embody who he is and be the Trump card and just squeak by. And everybody's going to be, you know, disgusted by it. They're going to pour into the streets, you know, over that shit. The media is going to try and like do the Arab Spring shit to blow it up, make it seem like it's more than what it is.
The Arab Spring shit.
Because that's what they did, yo. When they destabilized North Africa, they used the social media and the angles of the shooting, like of the protest, to make it look bigger, and then people really started showing up. Then it was bigger. Then it was organic at that point. Then now you got everybody's minds at that point. So they're gonna try and like storm DC. I feel like just with the, you know, same thing they did in Chile. Like they used to pay people. They did this in Chile. I think it was Pinochet in '72. I think it was Nixon. I'm not sure. I think it was Nixon. But they paid a bunch of people to protest and riot. And then they had the media record it to make it look like it was happening all over the place. And then it started to happen all over the place. And then, there was the coup d'etat, the dictator got thrown out, and, you know, we got who we wanted to get down there. So I'm just looking at the formula and I'm thinking like, man, this is really crazy how this is all happening. Like, I really do feel like everything's going to get disclosed, though. And that, you know, I ultimately feel like love wins and stuff, but this is going to be the most extreme, like, test of faith. And I think that's how only way I can put it. It's so on time that it's hard to not have faith, because you're like, man, they're going to do this ruling on December 14th. The eclipse is on December 14th. And it's just like so much stuff happening on time. We got Friday the 13th coming up. And like my dad working in the nursing home, and he keep telling me like, yeah, this second wave is coming. And then, like, you know, go to the grocery store and I seen, you know, the cashiers was like, yeah, they're getting all the paper goods. I'm like, yeah, the second wave is coming. So they're gonna announce that. And so I just feel like that's how it's gonna ride out. Because the first time they announced the, you know, the first wave, well, Trump did the executive order on March 13th. It was Friday the 13th. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do it on this Friday the 13th, November. So, you know, that's what I see. I see that, you know what I mean? Because then once people go out and riot over the Trump shit, they're gonna be like, y'all spread COVID even more. You need to lock down even more. And then I think that, you know, the Carrington event, you know, the CME, the coronal mass ejection, I feel like that's on schedule. And the superpowers of the world will call that whatever they feel like calling it, to spin whatever they want it, the direction they want it to, for whatever kind of power they want. You know, they'll say it's probably a bio attack and all that. And yeah, that's what I think. You know, that's pretty much the itinerary where I'm seeing, you know, right now. And people are just gonna confuse detox symptoms with being sick and say they got COVID. And nothing else really makes sense. You know, nothing else, as far as like what's happening and why it would be happening like this. You know, like nothing as far as the timing and everything, and then the conjunctions, and then just the way everything is going down. There's no mistakes in it at this point. I don't think you could like just be like, these is all coincidences that this is all happening on cue like this. And it's just, you know, it's the reset, and it's just happening in all ways, you know, physical, metaphysical, it's happening. And people just got to be practical and just stay on top of the breath, because everybody's path is tailored to them. It's not like it's a way that you could really explain to somebody how to be, you know, tell somebody how to be. You know, they just got to like follow their breath, you know, and that'll lead them to where, you know, whatever keeps their heart going, whatever is their definition of love, or which is really the definition of reality. You know what I mean? It's their definition of it. So I feel like if you just follow your breath, you kind of can't go wrong. Just staying on top of it.
Yeah, I'm curious about other possibilities, and I'm wondering, are you familiar with any of the developmental theories around like stages of adult development or stages of the development of consciousness? Like spiral dynamic, like adult development theory, spiral dynamics, integral theory, stages, anything like that?
I mean, like as far as like in the physiology, the way the thing is, just the development, just the patterns of the development, or just
Basically,
the.
like if you look at it through a historical perspective, it's basically like consciousness evolves. There are theories that show how consciousness evolves through stages, like increasing orders of complexity. It's kind of like a human being as an expression of consciousness having different operating systems it can run on. So if you look at our like primal egocentric first person perspective, right? Like we start with that, and then at some point we evolve to a second person perspective. Like this was the agrarian revolution, when we started to be, when in our childhood development, it's when we start to be able to take the perspective of someone else and go like, oh wow, there's other people in the world. I'm not the center of the universe. There's actually other people, and we start to identify ourselves in groups, right? We say like, oh, I'm a man or an athlete or a jock or a cheerleader or whatever. Like, and then third person perspective is the industrial revolution. That's like our scientists kind of objective. I'm putting it in air quotes, objective reality, right? And then you have fourth person, which is postmodernism. But you look at these certain inflection points throughout history, like the agrarian revolution, the industrial revolution, the invention of the internet. And I sense like we're in this inflection point right now. Like I almost feel like the way I keep saying is we've completely outgrown the world as it is, and you can almost hear the bells ringing in the new world that's trying to be midwifed in right now, that's trying to be birthed in right now. And I sense like we could literally be like walking through that portal, walking through that doorway, like any day. And that's part of what I wonder is like, I feel like a lot of the narrative right now can go to a really doomsday outcome. And I'm like, well, what if it's a different thing? Like, what if we're walking into a whole new way of being with each other? And like, we're talking about radical disclosure, right? Like we're going to see in the next decade a level of transparency that like we've never had this much transparency, this much honesty, this much unveiling, right? Like, yeah. What if we're just walking into a new age of consciousness, a new perspective, a new way of being together? That's what I'm feeling like emerging is there's this whole, like, we're in like the hospice process right now of letting the old world die to midwife in the new one.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's dark as before the dawn. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Like, it's gonna get as ugly as possible before that people can even experience that other side of the coin. So, this is how it's dark as before the dawn. That's what I see happening. I see people really getting tested in their faith so that they can experience that higher level of consciousness. Because through the test of faith, you experience. That's how you cultivate the connection with the consciousness through those tests. That's how the divine part of you is cultivated, or the connection to that part is cultivated through the challenges of life. So I feel like if you have these ultimate challenges on all levels of being, physical, metaphysical, your consciousness is going to evolve through those challenges.
Yeah, it's like the challenges to me are like this kind of, if you can work with them, they drive your like ascension. They expand your capacity for creativity.
Yeah, if people could look at it like, they embrace it and they want to have that, not conflict, but just have that the challenge, to embrace that criticism or whatever it is, to really look at it that way, like my enemies are my greatest assets in that way.
Right.
Like Nipsey said, it's a blessing to have great enemies and stuff, right? Before he died, the last tweet.
Wow. I didn't know that was his last tweet. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's your enemies really make you, the people that you bounce things, that energy off of hardly. And a lot of times, it's frenemies, people that are your friends are, the real enemies a lot of time. Or ultimately, I guess you're your own enemy. But I feel like those, when you have the competition, it really makes you better when the competition is better. And if you want that, if you go towards the fear, you're a lot better off.
Yeah. Well, and from my experience sometimes is that I realize sometimes in surviving through a fear, like a lot of fears come from primal based survival consciousness, right? It can come from early on in our development. We're scared. We create fear that if 1, 2, or 3 happens, we will die. And my experience has been like in living through the fear and surviving it, we start to actually realize we created the ego states that were responding to the fear, whether it's me hiding from the fear or needing to conquer the fear and dominate it or prove that the fear is not actually that scary. And we're creating the fear in the first place. And so that whole process of the ego states and the fear that we're creating, that can all be dissolved back into the consciousness it was birthed from.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that, just comes from like stepping away from the oneness of things. Like the more you're in the oneness of things, you're like, life takes care of itself and I'm life. And the more that you just pay attention, then the more you get opportunities to take care of yourself. But it's, paying attention, having presence it's always going to come down to that breath alignment and just not putting things in your body that block the cells from breathing, so that more parts of your body is present and not blocked with some food that was eaten emotionally that you've attached all these emotions to, that now your part of your body is really kind of in those emotions while it's not breathing. It's kind of like that area is on pause because it's not breathing. So you have parts of your body that's dry and all that, and covered in plaque form, and plaque form in foods. And so parts of the bodies and this trauma, parts of the bodies in this trauma, and this some percentage is in the moment actually. And the more that you can stay in the moment, the more that you can take care of yourself. It's really, because then you're just not hurting yourself as much anyway. So it feels like it's even more time to take care of yourself. Because you know how it is. Like if you're hurting yourself, you're gonna lose a lot of time just in unconsciousness, just in either rushing around or just being unconscious and forgetting things and missing things.
Yeah, it's like being hijacked.
Yeah. The body's just on, but it's like, you fight for the wheel, but it's just, it's so slick, man. The parasite thing is just so slick, man.
And so you work with these traumas and these emotional and psychic and spiritual blockages through breath work.
Yeah, that's the only thing to me that has been like truly like transformative in a way it doesn't feel like I need to be like I don't have to hate anything. Like I feel like as far as people that eat other things, I'll just be like, yo, man, if you start doing breath work, no matter what you eat or do, you're gonna enjoy those things still more. And whatever it is, everything you do, you enjoy it more, you'll do it more intelligently, whatever you're already doing. So I feel like when I just live at that place where I'm just like, yo, I mean, to me, the breath is the only real nourishment and everything else is just entertainment, and that's kind of, I'm looking at it. And so if I can detach from that, like look at it like every time I indulge in anything, like even a smoothie, it's my form of entertainment. And if somebody is doing meth, that's like their form of, entertainment to distract themselves from some deep trauma. So at some level, it's levels to the traumas and the way you're coping or whatever, but it's just still relative. Like, it's still relative. You still hinder yourself relative to your own potential, even if it's just like a little bit. It's still like, you got, you live with yourself. When you're holding yourself back, and that whole thing just the small really changes all, man. And like, really don't make them excuses. You can really evolve so much faster, and then everything is just so much easier. But it's really about just staying in the moment and slowing the time down. And then the only way to do that is through the breath, and then your thoughts slow down. It's just less thoughts every minute if you're not breathing as much per minute. You're having one breath per minute, you're gonna have less thoughts. But in the beginning of the breath work, you're gonna have a bunch of thoughts, because it's just like now you got like a bunch of breathing that was unconscious that you're kind of making up for now. So all of that has to get processed. So in the beginning of breath work, everybody like quits early on because they like get the monkey mind or whatever, because it's like all these back thoughts that were never fully processed. And if you just get through that 20 to 30 minutes, then you're gonna just start coasting to an hour, and it's just because time starts to just slow. Everything's slowing down, and it's just you're enjoying it at that point. Time, the whole concept of time is changing because you're living more so as consciousness instead of as the personal identity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, I mean, again, so if I take a developmental lens on this, right, and bring another, like, breath work, I do breath work, right? Like I got up this morning and did Wim Hof, which I know is there's a lot of different kinds of breath work, but like for me, like I look at it through, like, I've had a lot of success in psychotherapy, in like meditation work. I've experimented with a lot of stuff. I mean, I could go down a lot of different paths, but one of the things I notice is that for me, like, going towards the pain, that is like, at some point in my, like, in my development, maybe like 4 years ago, I stopped trying to numb everything and like drink everything away and smoke everything away and these kinds of things. And I'm not even talking down about that stuff. It's just that I went from trying to suppress pain to actually going towards it and trying to feel it and like learn the lesson it wanted to teach me. And I'm still doing this in a lot of ways, right? It's like, but that move of like, okay, here's pain, let me go get to know it. That for me is like becomes the sustenance that we need for our continued evolution, right? And I sense that's a lot of what you're saying with the breath work is, let me actually slow things down enough to feel my feelings, right? Like, let me like slow things down enough to be with what is.
Yeah, I look at it like, everything else, like as far as the other chemical states and all that, and all the things people doing from food to drug, it's all coping mechanisms. Breath work is a processing mechanism, so it allows you to process emotions and thoughts. As I feel like everything else is just coping and escapism, distraction, and the breath allows you to process. It's a mechanism of process.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Process mechanism. Well, I got to tell you, man, even in talking about this, the place that I go the most unconscious is when I eat. Truly. Like I walk around most of the time being, I'd say, fairly present. I mean, I have my moments when I lose presence for sure. When I eat, it's like I just shut off or something. Like I can eat a whole meal in 15 minutes, just like scarf it down. And I know, I don't know. I was going to say, I know that I grew up like that. Like when we were in school and stuff, we had 30 minutes to eat and it took 20 minutes to be in line. So you really had like 5 minutes to put down 2 sandwiches and everything. And I realized that's in the past. So I'm just like, again, kind of what we're talking about. I wonder what stored up stuff, what emotional energy, psychic energy, these kinds of things are stored up. Because that's the biggest place I numb out is while I'm eating. So I'm just calling myself on my own bullshit as we're talking about it.
Yeah, man, it's real, man. Like at this point, everybody got their distractions. I don't know. We all, until we all healthy, we all kind of sick.
Yeah.
That's the level.
If one of us is sick, we're all sick, right?
Yeah. It just degrees of sickness. Some people are really healthy. Some people are really, obviously really sick, but yeah, I think we just got to get that average up, just get that average up. We got to get that middle class and that average, get those things growing. The average, when the average person is just better than the greatest people are just greater. And it's just how that would go, man. Just the simple shit making everybody else better.
And do you think that's what it is? Do you think it's like for me, I feel like it's the frontier, like the frontier moves it forward and then the center of gravity bumps up. Like, I think it's actually the people who are out on the frontier pulling more that moves the center of gravity.
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess you get your push and pull on both ends with that. But when the average, because there's going to be an average, You know, there's going to be some sort of average or like, you know, typical. Something's going to be considered. There's going to be things that are like, some are excellent in some ways and some that are not excellent in those ways. It's going to be like the idea of average, you know, whether it be a characteristic, a trait, or overall average. Like average is going to somehow like show itself, you know, like just because, you know, the long and short define each other, you know, they're gonna express themselves. You're gonna have the average. I just mean it like, if the average person is, you know, they have, if the when the middle class is big, the rest of the country is wealthy. You know, when America had a huge middle class, it was the biggest. They had the biggest middle class that everybody else in the world combined. The rest of the country was just blew up in wealth. Really, when you have a solid average, then everything just kind of is just better, man. Like if you can get a solid average, if your average is poor, then you're just gonna be like streaky at best. You know what I mean? It just be nice to have a solid average, because it's gonna be always some type of equilibrium. You know what I mean? And it's just gonna be people that are just superb and people that are just whatever the gutter is relative to whatever, you know, whatever average is. I don't know, because at the end of the day, people, we're trying to be supernatural. I mean, super regular, really, but the super regular, our true super nature would be, you know, so divine, but it would be super regular. It'd be so like because you're not objectifying it, and it's all that type of, you know what I mean? It's all humble and like at the same time it's just pointed but not period. It's like it's so perfect in its likeness that, you know, I think that when everybody's perfect, then it's not a thing. You know what I mean? Or like a close variation of perfect. You know, everybody's perfectly imperfect, and they're being their best. Then it's kind of not a thing at that point. I was like, if you ever travel somewhere, and everybody is where you were at is really good looking, and then it's like, man, what is beauty at this point? It's like it's not a thing.
Yeah. Like I was down in Brazil in January, and that's what it's like in Brazil.
Yeah. You go some places, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I've been to Africa, and I'm just like, man, you know, women beautiful, men is handsome, everybody's so beautiful that you be like, damn, like, you really gotta like people for who they are, because it can't really be about looks. I mean, because everybody's attractive, so it's like I feel like in this world it's a little easier to get caught up in attraction. I mean, people be thinking attraction is love, and it's like, no, that's just your body's chemical state. Y'all are magnetically matching right now. Attraction isn't necessarily love. It could be a part of that, but you know what I mean? I feel like that happens a lot. But when you're in a place where everyone is attractive, it's like harder to get caught up in that.
Say more about that, the chemical attraction, and what it can be, but isn't always a part of love.
Well, because if somebody, you know, say somebody's avatar that has a greater potential, and it's like birth with a lot of DNA, but they just never activate it, and they eat garbage. It doesn't matter if you eat garbage, you'll end up matching with whoever eats garbage. They could be having the worst avatar and still be able to connect with you on that basis of eating garbage. You know, people matching in frequencies. So
yeah, you're like resonating with each other.
Yeah, and then you just see people that are together just based on the chemical romance, really, and they just like the same drugs or dislike the same drugs, and they're together because of that, and it's not really anything else. It's all stimulation. It's a stimulationship in a lot of ways.
I love that. Yeah, it's simultaneously a stimulationship and like a numbing relationship.
Yeah, right. And then the more you do it, then you're so numb, and then you're just like miserable, and then
it's like masturbation.
Yeah, and then people just accept their misery, I guess, because it's like, oh, you're supposed to be old and broken, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, masturbation definitely a killer. So what were you gonna say about the Tao Te Ching?
I've been listening to it on Audible, man. It's like poetry. I mean, it is poetry. It's like one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Um,
I'll
do
tear
you
up.
read it or do you listen to it?
I do both. I got a bunch of versions, man. If I read it or listen to it, I could tear up like at any time randomly.
Right?
You get choked up sometimes if it's just so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's like
But it's so plain
plays
though.
like a
It's like
really deep.
yeah,
It plays like the guitar of the soul.
yeah, man. I never. I've loved some books. I love the Meta Netter. I love the Oahu Ching because it's just like a more elaborate Tao Te Ching. But since the Tao Te Ching is so quaint, it's like the godmother of all of them. So it's just like I don't know how you can even. I can't even pick another book that's any better because it's so to the point. Every other book is like these are
Right.
good books, but they're not as efficient.
Right.
It's like the most efficient book ever.
It's there's no explanation. It's just like wisdom bombs.
Yeah, and I see people read it and I can tell they only get it on a few dimensions, but it's so many dimensions to each one. And you know, if you don't have the experience to cross reference, I guess you only get so many dimensions. But you know, whether you read it young or read it old, if it came across your body, you're gonna live different. If you read the Tao Te Ching and fully digest that, you can't even be the same person after you read it. It only takes like an hour and a half.
Well, I just pulled up some of the quotes, so maybe I'll just drop one in here and we'll see what comes up. A leader is best when people barely know he exists. Of a good leader who talks little, when his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did this ourselves."
Yeah, okay. I know that one. I know that one from a different translation, but I know that one. And either way, it's still like the one I know is like well, when the leader is when the leader follows the Tao, the people are hardly aware that he exists. Next best is a leader that's loved. Next best is one who is feared. The worst is one who is despised. It's it's like because like God is the most subtle, so it would be not even realized. It's the master. So that leader is not like it doesn't. It's not like God is like taking credit like in the sunset, just like writing his signature, like you know what I mean. Like here, this is my shit, y'all. I gave y'all this shit. Accept it. Appreciate this shit. It's not like that, you know. So God's such a subtle, governor of this whole thing. So it's people are hardly aware. You can forget that God exists if you can forget that God exists if you just keep living and like not, I guess keep getting lulled to sleep, not really acknowledging all the small stuff because it's so subtle. God is so subtle because it's so the consciousness is so incredible that it's never rushing. So everything has to be subtle kind of because there's been work like this whole thing's been molded for so long, you know what I mean? Like because the consciousness is timeless. So it's like, it's all been created from so far out at the same, if you can look at it in space, I guess it's all being molded by this thing that has this supreme view of everything. So yeah, I mean, it's wild, man.
So I just looked up another one that sounds like what you're saying. It says, "Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. Close your mouth, block off your senses, blunt your sharpness, untie your knots, soften your glare, settle your dust. This is the primal identity. Be like the Tao. It can't be approached or withdrawn from, benefited or harmed, honored or brought into disgrace. It gives itself up continually. This is why it endures. That is why it endures."
That's just so many paradoxes. It's so great. Like those who know don't talk, those who talk don't know. Like you get it like on a flat on its face, and then you can still get it like those who know don't talk, and those who talk don't know. You can still get it in the other way because it's always kaleidoscopic. You can get it both ways. You can get it to why the person that talks is knowing, and that makes sense as well. you know, and so everything is it makes sense. It's just how whatever stance you take on it, and then the more you step back, like kind of like the Dallas, you know, every time you read throughout the book, it's like step back. The generals have a saying, you know, don't advance an inch. It's better to step back a yard. Everything's kind of like step back, get the greater perspective. Continue to step back, and like going back is going forward, like yielding, you know, so I can get a better view of things, then I can move forward. And the more you step back like that, like physically, spiritually, you're like kind of stepping back and aligning with the view of the creator ultimately. Like you're gonna just step back physically, move forward, evolve, you know, continue to yield, dissolve ego, move forward. And you know, ultimately you would be merging with that ultimate bird's eye view, you know, our first eye view. So there's so many paradoxes in that one. I love that. I love every. So it was those who know don't talk. Is you quiet your mouth and everything. It really is like that too. Like not having them tensions in your body. The more that you're relaxed, people, you can have a tension in your body for so long and not even realize it. Like you do breath work and then you realize that you clenching an area of your body for so long, like, and just didn't even know. And that's, you know, a big thing with tantric sex, man. If your body isn't clenched up anywhere, then the blood flows better, and then it's just harder to, you know, it's just harder to release and waste, you know, waste ejaculation. So, it's just them tensions in the body causing like the blood to pool up in areas, and then the consciousness pools up in that area, and you know, kind of just stays locked in that area until it gets recirculated and relaxed. And it's sometimes some people never let things relax, and everything just gets more and more rigid, and people get more and more inflexible over the years. But you know, we're born super flexible as kids, man. And that's why I'm saying like this is the primal identity. You know, being like that, like soften your glare and all that, and you know, settle your dust and all that stuff. It's just that baby identity is your real identity. Babies breathing fully from the diaphragm, shamelessly, you know, wide-eyed, taking everything in, stepping back and being observant. And like, it's kind of like what the whole thing is about. And like back is forward and stuff, you know, like, you know, kids being ancestors, the baby's really the most aware. It's the most knowing itself. At that point, it's the freshest from the ether. It's just that communication be bad with people because they be bad within themselves. So they be having children unconsciously, and then they think their kids are the ones that need to be taught things, and you know they do.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
they need to be reminded stuff like, hey, yeah, this is how, you know, you do this. I know you ain't been human maybe for thousands of years, but this is how you do this right here. But they, you know, they don't need to be dominated. It's just they're not a being. They're not any like greater or lesser. It's wow.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of communities where we talk about this a lot. It's like, what if we shift the paradigm from children are born into the world and we need to teach them what they need to know, and shifted that, like in a parenting style, in a community style, and education style, shifted from we need to teach a human being what it needs to know to a perspective of a child's born into the world with everything it needs. How do we create a healthy ecosystem for it to flourish, right?
Yeah, that's it, man. You know, you can't control everything. You know, the challenges again, you know, create they allow you, they give you opportunities to cultivate the divine, you know, connection. Because every time you get challenged, you know, it's an opportunity to reclaim your peace. And then the more you get challenged, the more that you can reclaim. You train yourself to you know, maintain peace. So then you continue to evolve through that. And at some level, you know, you need people to be challenged at some level, you know, and ultimately our potential is always going to be matched with an adversity that's just, you know, pretty equal. You know, we when we meet new levels of potential, then we're going to meet new levels of adversity. Just the way things are going to go, because it allows us to we evolve through that collision. And how you go about the collision, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes up for me, I did some work with my inner child and inner parent this week in psychotherapy. And what comes up for me is how much we need to do to be more conscious parents. We need to do the work of our internal child and parent relationships before we go and project that all out onto the children we bring into the world. Like I really learned a lot this week in my session about, I was like, oh, I really had learned some stuff that was probably not going to be very effective if and when the time is right for me to be a father.
Yeah, no, it's best to go through that stuff now. You kind of always got to live in that kid mind at some level, stay in touch with that kid mind. Like, man, if a kid was in this environment, how would they observe this? And I think you can always like take that into account at some level and operate from like that childish energy that, having that in your life still, some level, whatever brings that into your life, that childish energy, then you'll maintain that perspective of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm being too much of a dictator. I couldn't be a parent with this energy, because people bully themselves and then they bully their kids,
Right.
And so it's
well, we bully the kid in us.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. We see the world as we see ourselves. So
Yeah.
whatever kind of polarization I got going on between me and the world is actually just an internal polarization that I'm projecting half of out onto the world.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it is that you do, man, if it's riding bikes, people roller skate or whatever, play sports, whatever you got to do, man, just, keep that, cultivate that connection. And I think that, you kind of can't go wrong, man.
Yeah. And we've got to evolve the roles and the way that different parts of ourselves are with each other. Like there's new ways of being coming online when we find out what, for example, like, I don't know if you have an inner bully and inner victim, but my bully and victim has evolved into like as I've got opened up to each one of them and gotten really curious into each one and what they actually want, like the one who was bullying wants us to awaken to fullest potential, right? So that's a new role it can take on. It's actually an upshift. Now it's not the bully anymore. It's the one who wants to awaken fullest potential. And the one who is the victim, well, it wants to belong. So now bully and victim get to grow up into the one who wants to awaken and embody fullest potential and the one who wants to belong. And there are new possibilities and new ways of being together that come online when the roles can actually upgrade, when we find out what each character really wants. And I see that happening in my interior collective, right? I used to call it the United Nations of Forests. Now I call it like the Forest of Forests. But I also see it in external collectives. Like there's a lot of roles in the world that want to upgrade right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately going to boil down to harmony, one way or another. That inner harmony and not choosing parts of your body over, the whole thing. Everything it got to fit the whole thing. It's got to be all decisions and everything have to be complete, and taking your entire being into consideration. Yeah. I feel like that's another way to navigate too. I feel like it's we the identity is only one, the external part of the being, in touch with the non-being or whatever, the inner being, whatever you want to call it. Then you're always going to be making decisions that are partial, respect areas of the body, and then you force that other part of the body into the shadows, and it just like haunts you, whatever it is, whether it's your physical that you suppress, whatever it is. And ultimately, it's holistic always. So if you neglect one area, it's just gonna domino. And yeah, it's such a dope process, man, of like coaching yourself. Because like the more that you the more that you detox, and you meet people that are detoxing, and you learn how to teach through being an example. And it's dope, man. Every time I reached a new threshold of detox, I met a new group of people every time. And so it's just always been a dope process. And I could always tell when I was like stagnating the process or trying to speed up the process, all that. So you could do that too, try to detox too much at once, and then you're gonna just run through things and you're gonna get everything in pieces, and you continually get life throwing things at you to detox because you keep trying to detox things before you even fully like take them in, digest them. Like that's why another thing with the Tao Te Ching, like if you want to be straight, allow yourself to be crooked or whatever and all that. I feel like you do have like an autocorrect. You have an autocorrect, man. If you do certain things, like if you drink too much or whatever, like there's eventually an autocorrect here where you're gonna die or you're gonna change. Like so, it's wild how everybody is in their path, but I guess it's all relative and like it's a multiverse at some level, like overlapping realities and like maybe from our reality we might see drunks and stuff, but maybe their consciousness is already kind of past this life. I don't know, but for me, every time I got to a new level, everything hurt more. Everything hurt more. Couldn't go back to certain things, certain levels of harshness, and just now it's just less and less harshness, less and less of a beat down.
Yeah, that really resonates. My thing was I got a lot of really good stuff going, and then I had a lot of self-sabotaging behavior, and so I really needed to go in and explore what was causing that. And it's interesting because if you look at it from a psychology perspective, right? We have these different parts of ourselves. In psychology, it's an ego state, and each ego state has a circadian rhythm. And so for many years, I was having like the dominant ego state running the show, and I was doing all the things I needed to be able to do, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, I'd do something like have a night of drinking or eat a bunch of junk food, and I wouldn't understand where that came from. And finally, through psychotherapy, I understood that my dominant ego state was the circadian rhythm had passed. That went to sleep, and these other parts of myself came out to play, right? The ones I had walled off and hidden away in the closet or the dungeon or whatever.
Yeah, really, but like that's why I do like I like mushrooms for like
yeah, right.
Doing mushrooms on the new moon because like everybody talk about staying woke and everything, but it really is that like as far as like breaking the cycle, like breaking up the monotony. I'm doing the shrooms at like 2 a.m. on a new moon. It's like or on a full moon, what have you, whatever you want to do. But I'm doing it on a new moon typically. And how often are you awake at these hours? How often are you woke at these hours and really in touch with the depths of your being at these hours?
Right.
Usually people are unconscious during these hours for most of their life. So if you're doing something like shrooms at 2 a.m., then you're gonna be in touch. You're gonna be more in touch with all of what you're saying, all of that buried stuff, everything that you're burying in your days in life. That's like like you said, it's not the dominant ego. It's like the passive or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of it is just really just.
It can be the traumatized parts of ourselves that are walled off.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's psychedelics kind of allow you to get beyond human opinion for a moment.
Yeah, because there's typically like what I've experienced is there's the dominant ego state or there's the ego states that are conscious. Then there's the walled off ones that are in our unconscious, and then there's another part of us that's sort of the door between the two. And oftentimes that part's saying you don't want to go there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to feel that.
Yeah, again, that's the thing with the fear thing, every time I've ever done shrooms at some level, like I can feel my body being afraid, every other part of the being is ready to go. But like at that point of like, it's about to happen. I'm like, damn, look, I mean, for me, I'd be doing heroic doses though, but,
what is that, like 5 grams?
No, like an ounce.
Oh my God.
Yeah, some people do more out here. I've heard some people have told me they've done like 2 ounces. I'm like, yeah, that's absurd, man.
There's gotta be there's a law of diminishing return here. I know there is. Like
that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. Like, what happens? Like, where is the threshold?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Marginal benefit cannot keep. It's got to be diminishing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I've seen how you could play it. Like, if I fast for more days on just water and then have, 10 grams, it could do the same thing as, 20
Sure.
grams.
Yeah.
So it is like, different. It's different based on like where you're at. If you're lighter, then yeah, you just need less, and I guess that's the only way I can chalk it up to people that can do stuff like that. But I always have it in tea. So, because I can't eat it, I don't feel like dealing with that nausea, and I don't feel like eating that many shrooms. An ounce of shrooms would be disgusting. But if I'm drinking it, it's gonna hit me in like 20 minutes, So it's just like kind of all at once, and I don't know. I've never ate that many. I don't know how people do that type. If there people are doing that, that's just like wow. All right, I can only take that tea.
All right, how do you make the tea? I've never had mushroom tea. What do you do?
You know how people like have grinders for weed? Yeah, I'll grind up all my caps and my stems.
Okay.
And I would just put it in water and let it steep in hot water, and then put like some lemon in it, some burdock, something like kind of like bring it out a little bit, and then I'll strain the as much of those big pieces of mushroom out after it like soaked up enough for me to be able to chug it. It's not hot enough to burn me. So I would strain all the fragments out, except for like maybe the little stuff that gets at the bottom, and I just chug it, man. And it be like I have it in like a teacup or something, like, and then just chug it. And it's disgusting, but it's a great time. It's a great time if you play it right, man. Yeah, I've definitely had myself out here in loops, and it was like, oh man, because you be hallucinating so hard. If you take them heroic doses, you really gotta have the breath where you gotta be on top of the breath, because if you get caught in a loop, it's so easy to forget to breathe, and then you start panicking, and then your body is like just going, and you know what I mean. So you just gotta keep that heart rate down, and then the shrooms ain't so. None of them psychedelics is bad when your heart rate is down and you're controlling your breathing. I mean,
what gets the heart rate up? Anxiety?
You're hallucinating so hard. You know what I mean? I don't even know how to explain. Like it's like you're like you're really like on the edge of your body when you take those type of doses. Like your consciousness is like leaving your body. It's
do you ever just leave the body fully?
Yeah, you know what I mean. When on them shits, you don't really realize a lot of that. When you just leave the body, you start to realize you're gone as you're coming back to the body. Every time I've left the body, I took a heroic dose, I'll be like on top of the breathing, doing my breath work, and I'm like, maybe I needed 8 hours and only did 5 that day, and I'm like, oh man, I'm assed out. I need to lay down. I'm done. I'm tapping. So then like, I won't realize until I'm coming back to my body. I was like, oh, I was gone. I was totally gone. Because you're just consciousness, and then like your brain's so lit up that once you're leaving the body, it kind of looks the same. It's all that like that ether, like swirling, like honeycombs, like, and so you don't even realize, you start coming back and feeling human things. You're like, oh shit, that's right. I have a fucking body. That's right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Nah. So, I don't know, man. Shrooms is great for that because it's definitely more emotional, man. I feel like for that emotional reset, like if you've been burying something emotionally all your life, take some shrooms at 3 a.m. and you're gonna get to the bottom of that, buddy. Heroic dose day. Stay woke at 2 a.m. and do that. I hear about people doing shrooms in a day, and I'm like, man, what a waste. I can fuck with acid in a day, but I can never fuck with shrooms in a day.
No shrooms in the day, huh?
No, no. Just no.
How come?
Because just acid's better. Shrooms is too emotional, and I need to be in the darkness and see what they're doing in my brain. You know what I mean? I need to see what's happening. I need to, and it's like it's too personal. I can't be with people, I can, but then I just feel like I'm missing something. Like I feel like I'm getting this shit going on in my brain. My pineal is getting these messages, and I'm just over here. My eyes are open, and I have barely any presence because I'm just off these shrooms. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, and everything's just colorful as fuck. But it's cool. I mean, day tripping is all right. I don't know. I just to me, heroic dose is the only way to go. I feel like at this point, it's the only challenge. Like, and yeah, I mean, I like it though, man. I like it for just that gut check to really see what you give a fuck about. You know, once you about to leave your body, you be like, yo, I want to be sober so bad. Please, just let me be sober. Like, you know, I think that's the cool thing about that, you know. I guess that's the maybe a roundabout way of going and getting that done. But I think it has definitely helped me. Shrooms helped me quit everything. You know, shrooms helped me quit weed. Like, just, you know, so at this point, I'm kind of cool with just shrooms once a month or whatever. Maybe, you know, maybe once every other month, depending on how many I can get my hands on. Like, I don't know. I like to like switch them up, do different ones. If I keep having the same ones, then I'll be like, man, it's not, you know, they really do give you different experiences. But yeah, I've only had one bad trip on shrooms.
Yeah, I've only had one bad trip on shrooms.
I was just being disrespectful.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I just didn't set it up right. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I just didn't. Yeah. I was just like, oh, whatever, man. Just give me this reckless amount of shrooms.
That's exactly what I did too, dude. That's exactly what I did too. So stupid.
Yeah. Like
just being careless and disrespectful and being like not honoring, there was no honoring going on at all. It was just lackadaisical. It was unconscious. It was just dumb. Really dumb.
Yeah. I thought I drove like I drove like 13 hours and I slept in the car for like an hour and a half. Then I went to the gym and then like I hit the steam room and I didn't do that whole time I did do no breath work. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do these shrooms in the day and I'm gonna do these shrooms and then I'll just catch up on my breathing once I start tripping because then I'll be compelled to start breathing. And that shit was the most terrifying. I was so tired, yo. So that was terrible, yo. The whole time I just was like clinging to the breath, like, please just get me through this, you know. But yeah, it was great though. It kicked my ass, yo. And then I quit weed after that. I was like, yeah, I can't. I don't want to be high. I just wanted to be sober. I felt like it was. I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, bad trips are good trips that are bad.
Yeah. There's no real bad trip. Even a bad trip's not a bad trip.
Yeah. Once you get over it, it's like when you like kind of get the wind knocked out your system and you're getting over it, you're like, whatever, I just conquered that. The endorphins is kicking in now. This is great.
Problem is after my bad trip, it took me about 2 years to catch my breath.
Oh shit.
Dude, I got wrecked on mine, man. I was out in the jungle in northern Thailand with the shaman, and it was like we did it the first night, and it was the best trip of my life. Like I was like laughing like a little kid. I relived my whole life, like just one of the best nights of my life. It was so much fun. And then the next night we did it, it was like me and the guy who I did it with were there with the shaman, and we were both like, we were both so deeply in fear, and that fear was like feeding off of each other, and we just kept spiraling down and down and down and down and down. And it was like, man, it was like at some points I remember lying on the ground and just shaking, like I was having like a panic attack, you know? And I just like, this woman was doing Reiki on me and trying to like get me back and stuff, man. But I for like probably a year and a half, I couldn't quite get back to like center. I was still like skitzed out from that. It was rough. And I didn't have anybody. The biggest problem was I probably would have been better off staying in Thailand, but I came back to the States into like Washington, DC, into like normal modernity, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. You know, I had just gone to Asia for 2 months and like done this vision quest and hung out with shamans, a bit out in the jungle and stuff. I came back here and everybody's like in modernity, and I it was like, not only had I had that experience, but I didn't have any way to integrate it. There was nobody to talk to. I was just lying on my ground, or lying on the ground and trying to feel my feelings and stuff, and put the pieces of myself that had fallen apart in my hands back together in some sort of way that was going to be functional.
Yeah, that's, man. Yeah, like at some level, it is like it puts you on probation for a while there, and
Yeah.
you just want to walk a narrow path after that. But it's it's a great thing at some level. But
Yeah, right.
I've definitely had them trips where like I just be hallucinating so hard, it's like to the point where you can't trust anything. Like it's so much hallucination that like all you can do is just breathe there and lay there. Like it's not, and if you start letting your body move, then you really start getting in loops. Like you have to sit still. You have to maintain that stillness to like really get through it like peacefully. As soon as you start moving, you're risking it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like with the shroom, with them heroic doses at least. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you can really have a great experience if you do just enough and prepare your nervous system with the breath work, and you stay still and you don't panic, man. So when you start moving from restlessness, which like it just happens if your nervous system's not ready, you start moving. I got caught in a loop so bad one time, I was walking around my kitchen and I felt like minutes were like centuries, Joe. It was the worst experience. Like I swear, the first 2 hours of the trip was great, and I thought I had peaked out, and then it just kept going up on me, and I was like, man, I can't. It's really getting tough. So then, I was in my kitchen pacing, and I just wanted to, because I wanted the trip to end, and I could barely see. Like I opened my eyes, it's pitch black in my house. I opened my eyes, I could barely see. It's still like that hallucination, like the spinning colors or whatever. So I couldn't really see out my eyes. My eyes were wide open. And all I could really see is like the clock. And so I'm walking around like, please, the minutes just go by so this trip can stop, please, And minutes felt like 100 years, It was like that Black Mirror episode, That shit was.
I got this image of you standing in the kitchen with your clock, turning the dial to make the hands move.
This shit, man. That was one of the ones, like every time I have those kind of trips, I call my mom, and me and my mom close. So sometimes I call her like 4 a.m. I'm like, Mom, look, I love you, right? And she's like, everything all right? I was like, yeah, honestly, I'm in a really good place emotionally, and I have to tell you I love you now. So it's so funny, Oh man, shrooms.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. All psychedelics, I feel like I've had good experiences with. I've had good experiences with alcohol, but I've had really way more bad ones. Like it's considering like how good the psychedelic ones are. Psychedelic ones really feel like, man, that was like good for my overall being. Like, if you really do it right.
Yeah. But, I know what you mean. You'd go out for a big night drink and you wake up the next day, you feel like it took all your life out. Sometimes you eat some mushrooms, next day you wake up and you're like, wow, I feel freaking awesome,
Yeah, like just, weights off your shoulders.
Regenerative, yeah, life-giving.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, where do you see this thing going, man? How do you see it playing out
over the next couple of months?
Yeah, till New Year's at least.
Yeah, well, I think what we're all being asked to do now more than ever is trust in not knowing. Like really be able to be in not knowing together. So I noticed the two biggest parts of myself that are being challenged right now are my need to know and my need to control. And I sense the more we cannot know together, the more we can. It's like the new world that's wanting to be born is calling us, and it's like literally right here. Like I just keep feeling like we could snap our fingers and be in it. And it's like we're being asked to surrender our patternings, our conditionings, to feel and work through our traumas. Like, I just see this, like, in a way, like, COVID's been this beautiful catalyst for all of us to, like, go indoors, right? Like, not just indoors in our house, but in our bodies, go indoors and, like, feel our feelings and work through what needs, like, feel what wants to be felt, be present to what wants to be presenced. And I sense that so many of us have taken that calling, like, in different ways, whether it's breath work or psychedelics or mindfulness or psychotherapy, like whatever the modality is that's allowing us to do this work of healing and development and awakening. Those of us who've been doing that are now able to sort of help illuminate the pathless path for others. Like, it's like, okay, I can't walk your path for you, and I can walk alongside of you while you walk yours. Like, I can share my experience as I've healed, same way as you're sharing your experience as you've healed. And that's not, nobody else is going to have the same experience. And there's little golden nuggets that can be picked up along the way. So all that to say, I see that the next few months and really the next few years unfolding is just all human action, all human interaction is an excuse for us to do the work of healing and development and awakening. And I really do sense that there's going to be this awakening to how we could meet all of our basic survival needs. And then like the whole orientation to life would change, because now we wouldn't be working for survival all the time. Like, we could still work in quotation marks, but it would take on a new meaning. It would be like, work is just sharing our essence in service to others in the planet, like sharing our gifts with others, and work being an excuse to do the work of healing and development and awakening. So I sense what's coming online is a new way of being, a new consciousness that wants to be born in each of us, or not really born, but remembered in each of us, and all of us as a species collectively. Bigger time horizon, bigger sense of self, and that we all come together and we heal. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, ultimately, yeah. Yeah, man. It's again, I think it's just the average. If your average thought is just about, like, food, rent, and sleep, then it's just, yeah, you can't come up. You can only come up but so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been playing this game, this, like, money game, where every day for a few months, I've asked myself, like, if I had $250,000 and I had to spend it by the end of today, and I can only spend it on things that feel light and fun and expansive and bring me joy, I can't spend it on debts and obligations and things that feel heavy, how would I spend the money? And I keep playing this game, and the more and more I get to it, it's like, at some point, if I give myself the stuff I would pay for, at some point down the line, for people, like, at some point of money, the answer becomes, I would just do what I enjoy doing. Like, if money were no object, right? Like, I would literally just enjoy myself. I would enjoy life. I would enjoy the moment. I would enjoy my time. Like, if money were no object. And I think that's a big thing we're all being invited into right now, is like feeling that center of gravity of joy. It's like, in a lot of ways, we've mechanized our consciousness so much that and then from postmodern consciousness, we've gone to war with everything we don't like about the world. And for me, it's like, kind of like we were talking about with the inner child thing. It's like, how do we come back to what really lights us up and brings us joy? That to me is I keep saying that my like meaning making system right now is trusting in not knowing with a North Star of joy.
Yeah, I mean, like, stay slightly sweet, like, not too, you don't want to smile too hard. You don't want to frown, but if you stay in the middle, then you can stay, like, just above the middle. Then you can, I don't know, just stay, cruising. I feel like, and I think that's kind of like I guess the modesty of things, in a lot of ways, uh, just greeting things gently, but it's like they pointed but not pierce, not piercing. Like if people ran into you, then they hurt themselves. But you're not piercing people. You're not going around stabbing people.
Hmm.
Then it's kind of the way you got to be at some level, like just point it but don't pierce. Radiant but easy on the eyes. But, that's
Oh,
the
I like
Taoist likeness. Yeah.
radiant and easy on the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, I guess we wrap it up on it. It's been like an hour. I'm gonna wrap it.
Yeah, I think that was a good line to end it on.
Yeah. Word. All right, man. I guess yeah, just hit me with the information, man. Thank you, bro.